none of this was intentional. Like, I didn't intentionally plan to have these huge gaps. The first two were planned, and then the rest came when they came, and we're just grateful that they're all here. So it creates its own challenges, having that, like, I feel like I'm raising 3 families, and I'm starting over every few years. But it's also been really cool to see, I don't know, I've loved giving my oldest 2 little baby siblings. That was like the best thing I feel like I could do for my teenage sons, was to give them little siblings. So that's been a blessing, but homeschooling is kind of challenging when you have a range of kids. So I had a couple of ideas that I wanted to share. The first thing that has really helped me is to be flexible and to be creative in the timing that you do school. So when my oldest 2 were 9 and 7, we started using a new curriculum from the family school and American Heritage. And the first day was a complete disaster because the babies were 2 years old and newborn. And we tried to do this lesson, and it was constant interruptions with trying to help out those little ones. So I said a prayer that night, just went out walking as I'm pushing my baby in the stroller. I'm like, I felt inspired to do this. What do you want me to do with this? How do I make this work? And the impression came to get them up at 6 o'clock in the morning and do school at 6 a.m. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. But then I knew, I'm like, that obviously it's not my idea because I never would have thought to do that myself. And I'm like, why not? Okay, let's try it. My boys were already in bed. And I'm like, we're going to do it tomorrow morning. I'm going to make them up at 6 a.m. I'm going to bring them down. We're going to do school. And they were light enough I could carry. And I brought them downstairs and, just totally surprised. But it became like the most exciting 2 years of our life. We were really consistent with that for 2 years. I was able to get up. The girls were sleeping, and they'd maybe wake up in the middle of the lesson. But we could get through a lot of stuff together. And so we'd focus on that, like our family school lessons. So literature, art, music, science, geography, and history. We would do one of those lessons every morning. And they loved the fact that they were watching their friends walk to school at 8:30, and we were finishing up the majority of our school. So that was really exciting. I tried that with my second 2 when I, again, had 2 babies, and I'm trying to homeschool the middle ones. And it didn't work out. They would not get out of bed, and it was impossible to get my girls. So I don't know what the difference is between boys and girls, but girls were a lot harder to get up. They were just not interested in it. Like, all right, we gotta do something different, and so we adjusted. So I just, being flexible and knowing how and when to work with that. My second tip is I really love that family school style because you can pull in all the kids, do a main lesson, and then give them something little to go along with it. So everybody's doing the same science, everybody's doing the same history, and we're rotating through the years together. And I remember when my one daughter was young, we would do flashcards together based on whatever lesson we were studying, and she was catching on to a lot of that material, even though she was really young. So that was kind of fun. The next tip I had was to engage the older ones in helping teach the younger ones. And my favorite story actually comes from my dad. I just learned this this last year. He is one of the older siblings, and his younger brother, Paul, when he was in kindergarten or first grade, was not doing very well in school. And the teacher came to his mom, my grandma, and says, you've got to help your son. He's not catching on. He's not learning how to read. And she had a new baby at the time, or there were some other family situations, and so she couldn't tackle that. She asked my dad, Mark, to take on the reading. And my Uncle Paul still considers my dad his hero because he stepped in and was so faithful every day, helping him with his lessons and helping him get caught up in school. And so that's kind of a really cool, unique bond that you can create with those siblings, is having the older ones help out with the younger ones. Okay, the other thing I felt really successful about, and I don't feel successful very, very much, so, is something called the grand opening. And I got this from, again, through the family school, through some of the teachers there. They created, the grand opening is what they would start their school day with, and everybody's involved, the whole family. And you are singing a song, typically a patriotic song, maybe doing the pledge, maybe that's once a week, doing the pledge, and then you would go in and you would be working on a scripture or from your core book, read something that you're going to memorize, and then you're working on something that you have already memorized and you're just repeating it, and then you bring in a poem or a quote, and maybe that's something from the curriculum that you've been studying, and you're memorizing one and you're repeating one that you've already memorized. And so you're cycling through those every day, and I have like a file folder. And so we pull out one, and I've actually had it where each of my kids is assigned to a day. You're in charge of leading or conducting this today, and then there's a new person the next day. And there have been times when the little ones are so kind of rambunctious that I have someone assigned to keeping them entertained and engaged while the rest of us are kind of reciting, and those little ones still pick up and are starting to repeat some of those things. And I've actually tacked on one more section, which is different quotes from the Constitution that I feel are really important that everybody should have memorized. So we tack those on and include those in the end. And none of these things do I do perfectly or have them follow all the time. You know, sometimes we struggle, and other times we do really well. But I like the that grand opening is something you can actually take with you anywhere. So if you go on vacation, I'll just snap a photo of the ones we're working on, and we'll use those as part of our, so we can continue on wherever we're at or whatever we're doing, and it keeps us consistent. And so like our file is now like this big of things that we've worked on and memorized together. So those are my main tips and suggestions, and on to you.
My name is Leigh Eager, and I have 3 kids, and they are actually really close in age. They're all 25 months apart. So I have almost 19-year-old, almost 17-year-old, almost 15-year-old. We call it birthday season. So we're just on that cusp of everybody changing ages. And so I've actually this is my, it's a new year for me in the sense that like I only have 2 that I'm homeschooling. And we've just homeschooled forever. And so, time passes, right? Despite my protests, my kids are getting older. Mine are a little bit different just because mine, I've always just treated them as like a little pack. Like they do everything together. And so that just kind of became our thing. We used, the family school was really taught me, and even though I don't use that particular Christmas, that curriculum, we still call it family school. And that would be my number 1 tip, is to do as many things together as you can. There's no reason a 5th grader and a 1st grader can't do the same history lesson. Like there's so many things that you can, and then that becomes a shared culture that you just do always. And so actually that's one of the things I stopped doing for about a year or 2. So when my oldest got into high school, I felt like, it's got to pick up the rigor, and I put her in all these other classes, and we stopped doing anything together. Like I just put everybody in things, and at the end of the year I realized that I missed it, because part of homeschooling is what I get out of it too. You can call that selfish, but you're in your homeschool the longest. You'll have older ones, right? So you have to make homeschool sustainable for you. What brings you joy? So even this year, as I started this year, I don't know what year it is because I have 19. And so I thought, and here's the irony. I actually was a public school math teacher for 8 years before I got married and had kids. None of my children like that. So I don't teach them math. And I thought, okay, what? Because it's a source of conflict. In fact, there was a couple of years, anyway, I made some mistakes, we had to recover it. But with that, I realized what this year is going to bring me joy. What am I excited about? And so this year I decided literature is what I'm excited about. And so I picked what I was excited about, and they just get to come along for the ride. And so some things I let them choose, but there are some things I specifically choose for me, because if I'm excited to teach it, I'll actually do it every day, nearly every day. We never do anything every day, by the way. 2 to 3 times a week is good. And so that's the other thing I would tell you. Like seriously, you don't. And so with that, pick at least one thing that you are excited to teach. And then the things that they're excited about, then I help facilitate them finding a teacher if am not good at that. So I learned after 1 year of not doing that, I realized that that's what I was missing. Is so find what brings you joy, because if you're joyful about it and you're excited, they're going to be more excited to learn. Versus like, oh, here we go on this one, if it feels a drudgery, I'm more likely to go, okay, it's okay, no school today, or just do your math today, or whatever it happens to be. So that would be my tip, is find something that you're joyful about, and make sure you have at least one thing that you're excited about every year. And so for me this year, it's literature. And it started out as world literature, and then as we finished a book, I go, actually, I want to read this one instead. So I just pick a book. I just pick a book and we actually just listen to it because I know myself and I fall asleep. So I just turn on Audible and we all just I have a puzzle and they actually read along because I have a couple of kids who are dyslexic, and so for them, they have their own copy and they mark in it. And sometimes I'll give them, okay, here's 5 words I want you to look for while we listen to this chapter. If you're trying to, pull in other language arts, but really we just listen to one chapter together a day, and we talk about have some good questions, and that's called language arts at my house. So because that's what I'm excited about. And then everything else, I would just say, yes, there are certain things it's okay to be like, hey, you love robotics, great, talk to your dad. You love, so you can piece together all the other things, but anyway, that's my biggest lesson learned these last couple of years is pick something that you're excited about. And then, what else did I have? Is there like, choose your mentors wisely, or it's okay to change, because I start out like Charlotte Mason, or I start, TJ Ed, or whatever. Like I would just say, so my 2 favorite mentors that have just really shaped me is Sarah Mackenzie. She wrote a book called Teaching from Rust, and I read it at least once or twice a year. And then the other one is Marlene Peterson with Well Educated Heart. That just speaks to my soul, how she talks about things. And so I just, as I've learned over the years, it resonates with me. So find something that resonates with you and inspires you, because you're in your homeschool the longest. And then with that, just pick those things that will build your family culture, because part of the joy of homeschool is that you have more time together to build that shared family culture, whether that be you've read all the same books together, or you've memorized poetry together, or you've sung songs, whatever it is. There's no perfect way to do it, but if you are happy, then it goes better.
I remember a lot of my things are so similar, but that when you said that, my mother-in-law, when I was first married, she loved to, like, in a sing-songy voice, if mom ain't happy, nobody ain't happy, and it ticked me off. It was so annoying to me, because I thought, mom should get to have a bad day every once in a while. If I have to be happy all the time, that's a lot of pressure for me. And she was totally right. Unfortunately, she was very wise in that yes, if we're not happy. So I love that we have to have joy, or we will be not very fun to live with for our children, and that's definitely not what we want, the experience we want to give to our kids, for sure. When they mentioned do as many things as possible together, amen, yep. Oh, I better say this. I forgot this part. I have 7 kids. My oldest is 26, and then my youngest is 14, and so they all were about 2 years or less apart. There's one gap where there's 3 years apart, and that's between number 5 and number 6. And so there was a lot together, and anyway, so that was fun and crazy, but also really joyful. And of course I miss those times, and if I could go back, would I change things? Yes, I would change some things for sure. Of course I would. But overall, I think for me, like the ultimate success is that my children love each other. They love to be with each other. They're each other's best friends, and so I'm going to have to count that a success, even when we're playing a board game and it's embarrassing because they can't add as quickly as the public schooler that's also there playing games with us or whatever, anyway. But to me, that's success enough, that they love each other and we haven't killed each other, and everybody's doing okay. So as far as just echoing it as well, like, do as many things as possible together, kill as many birds with one stone. Kids that are especially close in age, do the reading and the math together with them. They're just fine. They'll live if it's the same. It doesn't matter. We always did history together. Audio books in the car instead of disconnecting. I mean, when earbuds weren't really a thing when I had the bulk of my kids. But now that is thing, sorry, get those earbuds out. This is our family time. This is our listening to an audiobook time. This is our visiting time. Whatever it may be. Family reads. That is one of my very favorite things, is a lot of times in the crazy part of the condensed everybody home, afternoon would be when kids were littles would go down for naps, and so then I would get to read to the ones that were still coherent, and they would get to play their Legos and all that sort of things, or just sit and listen or draw or whatever. And those are the things that I miss absolutely the most, is just having everyone together to read. And that creates that shared culture and that love of books, whatever those books happen to be that your family chooses, but don't shortchange yourself. That is. And I still, with my 2 that are left, my almost 16, and my 14-year-old, that family read is still, I'm like, sorry, for the most part, yeah, there's like certain days it doesn't happen because of scheduling, but that's like, sorry, I know you're a big kid and you can read all on your own, but I'm doing this because it's helpful for me and I love it, so too bad. And they like it too still, luckily. So, poetry, again, well, I'll get to that in a second. And whether also like especially when you have a lot of kids that are together, being able to do your extracurricular stuff. We would do plays together as a family as much as possible, or sports, hockey. Even though there's like 1 or 2 playing hockey, we all come and watch and we support each other. Some families, they're runners together. I mean, it doesn't matter what the thing is, but if you can do it together, great. If not, I mean, there's definitely kids who are doing their individual things, and you don't want to have like, well, we're doing it, everybody has to do it, and so sorry, you can't be an individual. I'm not saying that, but being able to create that, again, part of that family culture. Let's see, the thing that as our kids got older and then they were in their own projects, it became like, for instance, if there was a girl memorizing Shakespeare, we would write Shakespeare on the Romeo's soliloquy on the board, and we would practice together. And so yeah, even the little ones, they're memorizing it as well, just because they're in the same room. They may again be doing their own thing, but they're getting exposed to it. So you're educating your whole family just on different levels, and I think that's the only realistic way to do it, or you're going to kill yourself. Like in too much energy. I don't mean like, ugh. I just mean exhaustion. That's it. Anyway. And then for me, if I was teaching classes, they were also watching the books, or I would get the reader, I would have to maybe read like the harder fiction or nonfiction, but then I would get younger readers for them, so that I'm still learning, they're learning right along with me. And that's some of my favorite memories, is learning the Revolutionary War or Civil War or Shakespeare, whatever I happen to be teaching. They're with, in our homeschool group, whatever, they're learning it with me. And so I've seen how then in the years that have come, that passion, that things that have brought me joy have been transferred to them. Yes, I wish I could say I have this deep, deep love for math, so that then they have this deep, deep love for math as well. It doesn't work. Anyway, so try hard, but whatever. But that's been joyful as well. And to then, as they've gotten older, to get fired up about history together and stuff, that's been fabulous. I would say for when you are so busy, you're trying to keep up with stuff, the thing that was most important was my relationship with my kids. And of course there's pros and good years, bad years, good months, bad months, whatever. But having mentor meetings, or just the one-on-one meeting with parents and child, or just one parent and a child, whether that was very informal sometimes, because kids are like, don't want to, it's awkward for them and they're uncomfortable, whether it was going on a walk or sitting in the car, or we're prepping dinner, but just having natural conversations, checking in with them. For me, it's like you got to build the relationship with your child. That's the most important thing. And so, like, looking back at, okay, what really things worked really, really well for your family? That's at like one of the top of the list, and like one of the core things, a part of our homeschooling journey, I guess. The last two, don't stress yourself out. Little kids learn so much by playing. Let them be happy, let them play, let them be exposed to it, but don't kill yourself again. Don't stress yourself out so bad thinking, oh, my littles. Let them play and be happy and be exposed to good, wholesome things, and it will all work out. It will be totally fine. And again, yes, have older siblings help as much as possible, especially I found like those that are struggling with reading or struggling with something, even though you like, ooh, they're really having a hard time with this. Maybe they don't know that yet, and they can teach a younger sibling just fine. And whether the younger sibling gets it or not, who cares? But we all know that when we teach something, we learn even more. And so that's been a blessing to be able to see with some of my kids in different scenarios and stuff. And then overall, because you are so busy, have so many things to do, very, very, very frequently, my prayer is, Heavenly Father, please help me to have a one-on-one interaction with each of my children today. It might not be very long, but because you're busy and I have my things, they have their things, you're taking kids, you're Mrs. Carpool, whatever, all of that kind of stuff. But I have really found that just that being intentional and asking for divine help to help me have a one-on-one interaction with my kids, as small or as big as that may be. And for some kids it might be longer. It might be helping them for 2 hours on a project. And for other kids it might just be, I had 3 to 5 minutes with them. But at least I was able to touch bases with my kids and hopefully not have just this stressed out mom moment. But again, there was plenty of those moments, 100%. Mainly because it was my fault and I was trying to be a control freak. So don't be a control freak. That's it. Anyway, there you go.
It's kind of a loaded question. Well, I have a loaded answer. Let me put it that way. So, having been a former public school teacher, some people are like, "Oh, you're perfectly prepped to teach your kids." And no, I think it was probably almost a hindrance. But my philosophy has changed over the years, and that's just part of your homeschool journey. You're going to learn and grow. So my philosophy is, one of my goals when I started was I wanted my kids to know how to learn. Because how do I learn as an adult? I pick a topic and I dive deep. And so, do they know how to learn so that they can learn anything that they need to when they need to? And then with that, I guess for each kid, it's where are you headed? So I have a daughter who's an author, and what do you need to get whatever you need to do to get to where you want to go? And then, so I guess it's kid specific in my mind as to where it is what you want to do. So if it's like, okay, you want to go somewhere that requires, not all colleges require the ACT or an entrance exam, but if that's your goal, then let's figure out how to do that. But I don't think, in my family, not everybody needs to take the ACT, or anyway, every family gets to do that on their own. So I guess when I say that's loaded, it's just because some people have things that I just personally don't, because it's just based on what my kid needs. So I have a son who wants to be an engineer, so okay, you're gonna need, let's figure out what that requires and let's help you get there. Versus my daughter who's an author, like, okay, what do you want to do? How do we help you get there? So I guess it's more individual basis, because my goal is, how are they going to learn as an adult? And the other thing that I think about is there such thing as what a typical 30-year-old does? Is there a typical 30-year-old? No, but we have this idea of what a typical 12-year-old learns, even though they don't. There actually isn't. Even in public school, there's not a typical 12-year-old, even though they're all put through the same rigor. Does that make sense? And so I think one of the things is, if you're new to homeschooling for sure, is like letting go of some of that idea of what's typical. At this age, they should be doing this, just because I think every kid is on a journey to learn at different ages. And I've also just seen kids who, at 14, suddenly they're fire lights and they can catch up, if you will, if there's such thing as catching up. So I guess, anyway, that's kind of my loaded, long answer as to why I don't.
So it sounds like the state.
And sorry, to answer that part of the question, Utah doesn't have.
No.
Yeah, so the state does not insert themselves into the progression of what you're doing.
No.
Unless
Thankfully.
you're a part of like one of the, like Open Ed, do they?
You can still opt out.
Yeah, you can opt out of the testing, so you don't have to do that.
Anyway, do chime in.
Well, I would agree. I think that's basically what I would say as well. It's just super individualized to what your kids need, and then you go that route. Whether it's, you do need to be taking some college classes because this is your route, or you do need to take the ACT because you do want to attend this, or so it is. It's based on the kids and what they want.
Age range for that for you?
I would say not before 14, for sure. Like there's nothing that they have to be accomplishing before then. And then at that age, I've even had my oldest two go and meet with a mentor to kind of say like, okay, these are some of the things I'm thinking about, and then she'll have some suggestions. Oh, well then you might want to consider these options, or put yourself on this path, and that helps them prepare where they want it to be. So that kind of like what you're saying is, once they have an idea of what they want to do, then you can help them identify the path that they need to take. And I would say like one of my sons had a really hard time with math, so there were quite a few years we didn't really focus on math. We were playing math games, and he knew some of the basics, but it wasn't until he was like, oh, I really am behind, I need to catch up, that he was able to put in the effort and get caught up pretty fast. So.
But I also think I thought I had a plan at 17 when I moved away. I went to college, but I still changed my major 3 times. You know what I mean? So if there's, we help them with whatever their current vision is, and we know that it's going to change. How many career changes are we having in our lives right now? You know what I mean? Like, I just think, and my goal is, do they know how to learn, and do they know how to adapt?
I would agree with that. Same thing.
I think the only thing that I would add as far as if we let our children have the freedom to pursue their interests and to go deep, to go down those rabbit holes, those sorts of things, that when they have that freedom in place, then they will naturally find those things that they are most driven to. And it is about 14, 15, 16, you start seeing the light bulbs go on a little bit about, oh, this does interest me, or here are some of my natural gifts. And helping them identify those natural gifts can help them to then know, I should go in this direction, or anyway, and it is hard. How many times we change our minds? We do, and they probably will, but bottom line, if they know how to learn, then they'll be okay. I've had quite a few of my kids in college, some that will graduate, some that were there for a little while. All of them, though, are very, very driven natural learners, as far as love to learn and want to keep pursuing, and that even though as a family we weren't necessarily like, okay, you have to read at this level, and like we weren't putting the benchmarks on them, but just the natural progression of learning, they did just fine. So much so that like my daughter, when she was in college, in an English class, her teacher's like, oh, you must be an English major. She's like, no, I'm not an English major. You should be an English major. She's like, no, I just was homeschooled, and I learned how to write really well. And so they do just fine, even though maybe we don't put those benchmarks on them. If we establish that culture and that love of learning and help them to take off on their own, they will get what they need. And if college is one of those options, if they want it hard enough, they'll make it happen. And that might like, okay, I'm going to help give you, we're going to do early concurrent enrollment to help you in that process. Anyway, so there's definitely, I don't know, does that help?
Did you think anything about that?
It'd be perfect. Let his little natural mind learn.
You're asking homeschool, so of course we're gonna homeschool.
That's the kind of child we want to be homeschooling.
That's the joy of like individualized education.
And then there's a second. School.
What books would you recommend that they read to think about this?
John Taylor Gatto.
Yeah. Yeah.
You guys want to write it?
John Taylor Gatto. I can't remember the name of it.
Dumbing Us Down.
Dumbing Us Down. That's
Dumbing Us Down.
Read
That book.
Weapons of Mass Instruction.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because those are just some of our thoughts, because we've been trying to struggle with some of this stuff, and it's just sort of like, we're seeing some, we thought this stuff about homeschooling things, so.
There's a lot of freedom, and it sounds like they're both full of natural curiosity, which is part of their nature. Let them run with it. And yeah, I think especially in homeschool, there's a blessing that you are with your family, you're with other ages, and so age isn't at a young age ingrained that this is who I'm allowed to socialize with, this is who I'm allowed to talk with. And so it is a very, very natural thing. I think probably most of us would probably agree that, yeah, our kids are okay talking to other ages and it's not a big deal. It's just normal. And so anyway, I'd say you would love it. Try it. It's so
And there's so
joyful.
many resources, right?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. More than you even want to know about, because there's so many resources. But
So with that, I would say before you get lost in looking and deciding on resources would be to remember, identify your like top 3 goals, and those can change year to year. But like my goal is like my kids are friends and they know how to learn, and that kind of helps decrease the clutter and the resources. Just remember that they're tools, not your master. Like, so just because you bought a curriculum doesn't mean that you have to use it. Does that make sense? It just becomes a tool in your tool belt. When you go into your garage, do you get mad because you didn't use your hammer yesterday? No, but sometimes as homeschoolers, we see that curriculum we bought and we're like, oh, I haven't used it in a while. You know what I mean? But just remember, it's just a tool like your hammer. You don't have to feel guilty if you're not using it. So just know that like it's easy to get lost with so many resources. Just to come back to your why. What's my family culture? What's my top subject that I'm working on for these next? Another thing I learned from Sarah McKenzie is she does we call it a Sabbath week. So we do 6 weeks. And then take a week off, and that's when you reevaluate and like, okay, this isn't working, let's try something new, but give something a full 6 weeks.
But then
The likelihood that they're behind is very small. I wouldn't worry about it. Especially like, especially if they're a natural curiosity learner, they're not going to be behind. I wouldn't worry about
and
that.
reading's reading.
Well, I wonder, like, just being able to say, okay, if you want to do this, here's some steps we have to take to get there. That's one thought. I don't know what else.
I would say do as much you can, because there's so many things you can do together. Like, it's okay to do history together. And if the 11-year-old needs to, do some extension activity, then make a 5-year-old version of that. It's okay if they have a different like add-on activity, but the bulk of it you do together. And then as far as like, it's okay for a 5-year-old to like learn by just being around. Does that make sense? There's some things that there's some things that I don't think are like foundational. Does that make sense? It's okay if he just picks it up because he hears, same thing. Like my youngest, so when he was, 4? So his sisters were 6 and 8. He came to me one day and like got in my face, Mom, you haven't taught me to read yet. And I was like, sorry, like, didn't know that was a priority because he saw his siblings doing it. So it's okay for him to be like, I want to learn this and be inspired. Like, that's actually one of the benefits because they're not, so age focused and only seeing what their age group are doing. So
I was gonna, the one other thought that came to my mind is if he's saying like, oh, this is boring because it's not what my brother's doing, like, find other ways to introduce, like we do a lot of math games. We play mostly games and do math puzzles and work on building strategy and thinking skills with math. And so you can find things that are engaging for that 5-year-old to do that would build up some of those core concepts and help develop some of that foundation.
I don't know. Oh, sorry.
I was gonna say, I wouldn't necessarily worry so much about them wanting to jump ahead, because it doesn't necessarily mean you can't go back and fill
Yeah,
it.
you can fill in gaps that you find.
My son I have a random son that loves math. So he wanted to learn the Pythagorean theorem in 2nd grade. I said, okay. So I said, this is what it is and this is how it works. And he kind of went, okay. And then we went back to the normal, the other stuff he needed to do. So just because they have an interest in something that's more advanced doesn't, I don't think, mean that they're going to skip everything between A and B. They're gonna end up filling it in.
I don't know if this is good counsel or not, and somebody can totally disagree. I don't want to hurt my feelings. As far as like because all of the knowledge thing, I'm just thinking, so him wanting to be like Big Brother and to be cool, I have to be like Big Brother, that sort of a thing, that maybe he needs to understand that you are okay where you are, and where you are has a lot of fun perks too. So I don't know if you are a part of a homeschool group or things like that, but where he has opportunities to be with those of his own age a little bit, and he gets to enjoy being, his doing fun, age-appropriate things that little 5-year-olds would normally do. But I think what you have is beautiful. Don't worry about it so much, other than helping him like, oh yeah, it's fun. Because sometimes like, oh, I'm not gonna I want to be like my big brother, so I'm not gonna pretend and play with cars because Big Brother doesn't do that. I don't know if that's a good example or not, but maybe that might be something. So have him find some friends, and there's a bajillion resources, like that part right there, that homeschool, there's so many resources, but having him to be with his own buddies and get to do his own cool things that are his age, that I think then will help him be okay with how old he is and not wish away his precious childhood years.
I know.
Yeah, oh, I had a thought.
Yeah.
Like you could also encourage the big brother to do things that a 5-year-old might do. Like just like let's have a break and you guys play together. Like you know,
they do.
Yeah.
You
So-
could also do Dana's suggestion of having the older sibling help teach, and that might make him feel like, oh, this is cool because he's here doing it with me.
And sometimes some of those things that you can't plan some of the beauty that's going to come from your homeschool.
Yeah.
You couldn't plan it if you wanted to, and you look back and you go, oh my goodness, that was so beautiful, and I couldn't have planned it if I wanted to, but I'm so grateful for how this worked out. I had one other thought. Depending on your personality, you can be involved in so many things, and so one year I declared Mondays is we don't go anywhere day. For my own sanity. So I would just, because they have piano lessons on this day, and you're just running, and we have co-op on this day, and another co-op on this day, and all the things. And so one year for my own sanity, anyway, just as a tip, I just declared one day a week, we don't go anywhere. And that really and then one day I know, like, hey, we got all the things done that I wanted, you know what I mean? Like, whatever that means to you. And for some personalities, that would just, I have one friend, it would kill her to have one day at home. And so just, I know your own personality, but for me, the year I did that, I was like, oh, I love this day so much because I don't have to go anywhere. So anyway, would take that with a grain of salt.
There's lots of different things that, as far as that could be indicators, but this is like a silly one. But sometimes kids well, they have a backpack, they're going to school. I see all my friends walking to school, and we can have our own school too. And so that might be, are they noticing things like that? And that might be really natural. Oh, here we go, we're gonna do our thing. I think like right now, so my daughter lives with us right now, and she has 5-year-old, 3-year-old, almost 2-year-old. Anyway, and so school for them is very, very basic. They have their tiny little morning devotional, and it's tiny, maybe 10 minutes, and that's it. As far as with 2 and 1 doing whatever he wants, and then she'll sometimes have a more formal lesson with the older one, and he has his little book that he gets to write in, and she will, so it's like so simple. But as far as like a formal, like if you want to make it this big fun thing, like, yeah, we're starting school party or whatever like that, you can make it really fun and big like that as well. But I wouldn't put a lot of pressure on yourself at all. There's still, I do think you could do some things, but don't stress about it too much yet. But yeah, you have to be strategic when you have littles. Oh, they're happy? Now is my moment.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's realistic.
So when my oldest was like starting kindergarten, so other kids at church or whatever were starting kindergarten, and I was super excited. So what I did, anyway, it sounds so funny, but they remember, it's like memorable to them, and we did it because sometimes consistently. So maybe we did it for 2 or 3 weeks the first month of school, but I had them leave for school out the back door and come into the front door, and it was so and they remember that so much because now it's school time, and we would literally, you're only doing it for maybe 20 minutes, right? It wasn't long, but that's like a core. Do you remember when you we went to school, right? And so, but then after, the excitement wears off, my rule became, if everybody's happy and playing this morning, we're not starting school until they're not playing. If they wake up and they're happily playing, don't interrupt them. There's so much learning that happens there. And so I learned over time, they're like, we don't have to start school every day at 9 o'clock. If everybody's happy and playing until 11, we can have a short lesson before lunch, and that counts. So that became my rule for a couple of years is, if everybody's happy playing Legos, we're playing Legos. And I could read, and they'd listen for years and years, even until my oldest was even into her early teens. It was a lot of Legos. They just all played with Legos, and I would read the lesson aloud, or I'd read a book, and that was school, and that's okay. If everyone's happy playing, there's a lot of learning happening, even if it just looks like play as an adult.
Also, when they're eating, they're a captive audience. Yes. And their mouth is full, so they're not talking. So we do a ton of school, breakfast and lunch. And they play in between. I'm like, we can get 2 or 3 subjects sometimes in a meal because I keep wanting more food. So it works great.
I feel like they're all eating. I'm eating. No one's talking to me. No one's
Sure,
bothering me.
that's true.
It's like I need my own
You eat
little.
first. And then
Someone wants to play after the lesson.
But as far as like, if you're like, I have this vision of a grand opening, it's okay to be like, okay, we're gonna start every day with just a song. And then when you're comfortable with that and that feels easy, then add in something else.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
I do that with the school year too. I do a rolling start. So the first week of school, we do one subject.
Yeah.
And then the second week, I add another subject. So we're not up to full speed till the end of September. And even we do the same thing in January. Okay, let's start. Everybody go do your math this month or this week. And that's all you're doing. That's all you have to do this week. And then until it feels overwhelming, then back off. And be like, okay, this is what everyone's happy. If you can smile at your child at the end of the day, then that's a good place to be. If you can't, then back up to that other week. So.
Just some ideas for toddlers.
I would say have some specific activities she can only do during that learning time.
Okay.
Make it special.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, for one of my youngest boy, he's kind of like that too. He's like wants to be doing everything that his older brother's doing, and so some of them, like, I don't know, there's some great things I think from the Good and the Beautiful, little activities that they can do in there, that like matching butterfly pieces or matching letters with an animal. And so those are things that he was loving doing. He could just do that flip chart like right next to me and be really occupied, or whatever activities that she loves to do. If there's something that she only gets to do during that time, and she can be fully engaged in it.
I heard this idea years ago from somebody, and it can be adapted to this really well. But this lady anyway, get some special container. It could be an old suitcase, whatever. You know, she's a girl, so she'll totally, ooh, a special box that has beautiful things, and put those things all in that special box. And that's stick really, really strong to it. That is only what you get. That you only get this at that specific time. But even though like your two boys are super, like a lot of your time and energy, give her 5 minutes of school that's just her very own.
Before you start with them, I would say let her come first. Meet with her and have her like call it, if she wants to call it school, whatever it is.
Call it school. Yeah, mommy school. You get mommy school.
You get mommy school, but I would start with her.
Okay.
So to fill her cup.
So she
before.
feels filled. Yeah.
Okay.
Like inhibiting.
I'll give you an example. This is nuts. So my daughter, my 20-year-old daughter, she works, anyway, I don't mean to like, whatever, it is what it is. So my 20-year-old daughter, she works at an after-school program. It's a grant that schools can get so that students can stay after school and have like an after-school program that has these little specific lessons that they're supposed to do. Basically, if nobody's at home or something like that. So, so as she's going in, she's been homeschooled. She's a fabulous natural teacher. She has all these ideas and hopes and ambitions of things that she wants to take from her homeschool loves to this school. And she would take brain flakes. Does anybody know what brain flakes are? They're little circle thingies and you can build all sorts of cool things. She takes these brain flakes and she reads to them and they don't know what to do. And their creativity is so squashed. And then she will start building. Oh, and then they sort of get it. Another instance, that one of the lessons, you're supposed to do this thing. One of the lessons are so dumb, so lame house, so pathetic. But so superficial. Like, really, you think that you're an educator, supposedly, and this is supposed to be stimulating for your child? Give me a break. Anyway, that's not very nice, but it's true. And so, there's like, draw a picture of da-da-da, and the curriculum says you have to do it this way. Well, because yes, she's like, no, I want you to, she gives them a blank piece of paper. They have no idea what to do with a blank piece of paper to draw. So she'll sit down and she'll start drawing with a blank piece of paper. And they look at her like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? And they are so amazed that, oh, I could do this? I could draw with a blank piece of paper, whatever I wanted. And it's like taking off layers and layers of dust as she works with these kids to get them to be creative again. And this is elementary school, so she has kindergartners to 5th grade. That young, their creativity is already been squashed. Sorry, get all about it. So my favorite story, it takes me off, but this is rampant, absolutely
Yeah, it makes so much
rampant.
sense.
Yeah.
Doesn't make sense, and it's so sad
So
because
sad.
that's such a gift that they have. So yeah, the whole AI stuff, yeah, their creativity is going to have to be preserved, and they're going to be able to be successful.
Okay, so a funny story from my oldest. When he was 6, 7 years old, he was playing with Legos, building something, and he. Yeah, I did not mean to make that reference, sorry. And so he's building this Lego thing, and his friend, who's a public schooler, and I don't mean to be, like, not all of them are like this,
No,
but
no, no,
it was just
for
funny
sure, but-
because his friend, I just had to make that distinction that mine was homeschooled, and his friend's like, how did you build that? And my son's like, I just used my imagination, and his friend's like, imagine a what? I don't even know what that is. So, you know, the homeschool really does preserve the creativity and the imagination in my mind. That's,
But I will say, like, a lot of that has to do with their home life.
yeah. for
The kids who
sure.
are in the after school program are probably there because mom and dad are
For
both
sure.
working. You know what I mean? Like, so just because you send your kid to public school, that won't necessarily mean that their
For sure.
creativity is ruined.
Right.
I just barely took mine to homeschool for a while, and we're seeing how it goes.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think of that a lot. I think of, like, it's our responsibility to create a home that will. make
Yes,
our
and a lot
kids
of parents are more intentional.
Whatever that
They do
looks
a lot
like.
more with their kids outside
Yes,
as well,
yeah.
as well as having it.
But the word intentional, like,
Yeah.
if you want it not to be crushed, you have to be so deliberate and
Yeah.
intentional on those times when you do have them at home.
Yeah.
But I've seen the same things. Like sometimes they're like, oh, my friends want to have them come play. It's like, oh, and it literally, this is that kid can't use their imagination. It's so hard to have them come play because they're so high maintenance. They just, well, I want to do this, and now I want to do this. They're not able to entertain themselves and to go there in their imagination so that they can play for hours and hours with your kids. Anyways, I better not say.
Okay. Like screen time.
I would say this is something I've really struggled with, and there's like none at all. And my husband and I don't play at all. We had 2 boys to start with, and there were little things that trickled in. I think, I don't know, my first one really struggled with it, and we had to set some boundaries. My second one, it was like, I don't know, there was something that just told me, like, let it be, just let him play. And it was a very social thing with him. We'd have friends come over and we'd set up a game room in our garage, and I'm like, I can't believe I'm doing this. This is so against my character. But there was something that was just like, let it be. And he was really dedicated with his school. He was very self-motivated, so he'd get all that done first. And he turned 18 and he was like, he didn't need it anymore. He was done. And it's never been an issue. And so I think you really have to be really intentional with each of those children and know what their weaknesses are and what their strengths are and what it's feeding. For him, it was very social, and it was something that all of his friends were doing, and he needed that. That was really important to him. And then when he didn't need it anymore, he let it go.
Yeah.
So.
Versus I have an almost 15-year-old, and he's now creating his own video games. So I don't see it as a, like, I mean, we're careful about which kids he needs to play, but, like, that is his passion project right now. He's like, anyway, he's learning all these new programs because he's programming and he's making his own. And so I'm like, I don't see it as a negative because that's a passion for him.
Yeah.
So you can get all, like parenting, you get all kinds of spectrums on screen time. So,
Yeah.
do you have a question there?
Oh, I was just gonna add to this, thing about the games is, you know, every child is really different with it. And for some children, it can really be an issue. You know, I have 2 stepsons that are grown now, and I have 2 teenagers, and I have an 18-month-old. That's why I'm here. So with my oldest, it's just a problem his whole life. It's like his struggle in life is to learn how to exist in this world, in a world that has video games, you know? I think the same way an alcoholic has to learn how to live in a world that alcohol is available, you know? My second, though, he just grew out of it one day. He had a pretty healthy relationship with it. He could play it, he could do it with his friends or with his older brother, and he could leave it. And one day he just grew out of it. And it just wasn't something that was going to be a problem for him as I come in. So my oldest, it's a little bit more of an issue, and with my daughter, it's not. And I just kind of feel like going into it with my littlest, who is a boy, and it really does have an effect. I just don't think it's gonna be a part of his life, you know, because I know that it's a roll of the dice. It could be a real problem for him, and it could not, and why risk it, you know? And it really does matter, you know, it's, the boys are really targeted with that, because when they're in the teenage years, they have all of this, what I call life force energy, right? It's the time, you know, maybe more historically, that they would be learning with an axe or a, you know, and they have all of this to give, and they might be building, and they would be, you know, going out and all the things that they might be doing in a world, you know, that existed really not that long ago. And instead, it's those games, it just sucks that life right out of them. And it can be, and you know, and in the case like your son, he's making his up, like it can be this like it's not like that for everybody. But for those that it is, it's a tragedy. So
I think it's just with all decisions as a parent, you just go in with the faith that you like, how do you
the child
know
that's
each
in front
child?
of you, right? Not the hypothetical, but who's in front of you, and what do they need, and what's going on with them.
For you, Susan, I would, for anybody that has not read that book or listened to that book, you need to.
Yeah.
It is absolutely essential. It was life-changing. For me, it saved my little boy's life, and I did not physically hurt him because he was driving me bonkers. And then I listened to that book. I'm not even kidding. I am dead serious.
Oh, that's good.
And it was like, oh, now I understand what's going on in that body of yours. That's so intense. Okay, now I know what to do with you and how to let you be you and not just, but that talks a lot about addressing boys and the susceptibility to video games. And he's not like anti-video games, like you can never watch video games or anything like that. But anyway, a lot of wise counsel and real life data in that book. Highly recommend. Anyway.
And it's not necessarily homeschool specific.
No, it's not.
But it's just, it's fantastic research. Pretty.
Are we done? I don't know if she was.
We probably have time for one more question.
Can I say one more thing about this? And then,
Yeah.
I just say, with like screen time and things, I learned, I studied child development in college. And the more interactive it becomes, the more the dopamine, and the more it changes your brain.
Yeah.
So like sitting there and watching a movie or something, especially like a long frame story playing out, right, has way less impact and is probably like more okay from your kids than like the short, quick films. Those are really addicting, like TikTok or Instagram kind of stuff. Like the short films trigger that dopamine more and your attention span goes down, right? And so the like timing of shows, and then video games, when you're like involving your body and your movements and stuff, can affect your brain much higher than just watching a screen, if that makes sense. So just being cautious about like what kinds of games they're playing, what kinds of videos even you're showing, the length of videos, those things matter in what they're teaching the brain, if that makes sense, how you're training your brain.
I love the well-educated heart philosophy and idea, and but even before that became popular, I was doing homeschool, before that. But I think for me, it's the classics, the poetry, and beautiful art. And so even before it was, we're going to look at this beautiful painting and tell me what you think, tell me what you feel, and interacting with beautiful classical literature that's full of morals and good things. And so in my comments, it's like heart education is the first thing that we take care of, and then the rest of like the brain education. Not that I call it brain education, I don't, but as far as like the heart education that has to happen, that's the most important. And then the other stuff happens. It's just the priority, and it's okay, and it works out fine. But yeah, anyway, I know. Go ahead.
Oh no, just similar, like the catch the vision, regardless of curriculum. This is not a curriculum, but just that idea of like nature, poetry, stories. That's where you get that you start to build that family culture of whether that you call that the grand opening. It's like what are those things that you're trying to build up and become part of your. For me, that's stories in all forms. That's kind of part of our core of my family You know, and my husband, it's like movies. So my husband watches the long epic movies over 2 weeks, you know, and talks about it, you know, each segment. And so I would also say then include your spouse in your homeschool. What's their passion? What do they want to share? Because a lot of times you feel like it's the mom, and so if at all possible, find their passion and have dad teach a subject, or at least share their passion in a certain way with the family to help build that family culture together. Sometimes it just falls to the wall.
Okay, did you have one more thing?
No,
I think that's a perfect.
Well-educated heart is where I go to as well.
Perfect. I think that's a perfect place to end here. We appreciate our panelists today. Just one more time for those who walked in late, we had Leslie Leonard, Leigh Eager. Am I saying
Leigh.
Leigh excuse me, Leigh Eager, and Dana Robb. So we are gonna end tonight. If you guys have more questions for them, I'm sure they wouldn't mind if you pull them aside and ask. But we're so grateful for all of you for showing up tonight, for asking great questions, and for being here. And we're so excited for all you're doing in your families. We're happy to support you. So
we wanted to thank you guys, and those flowers are one for each of you.
yeah, can we give them a bigger round of applause?